You've probably seen how the Lions handled that big extension quietly and efficiently. No circus, no leaking, no public wrangling. And if you're honest, it stings a little because that's exactly the kind of front office behavior you wish the Cowboys would emulate. Right now, the Lions are showing that you can lock up core talent, preserve culture, and improve your team without turning every move into a social media soap opera. That matters because winning in this league is as much about consistent, boring competence as it is about splashy headlines. Think about it. When a rival quietly gives a cornerstone player what he needs to stay, they don't just keep the player, they send a message to the rest of the roster that the franchise operates with clarity and intent. That's a recruiting and retention advantage, plain and simple. So, let me be blunt. If the Cowboys want to compete at a sustained level, they need to stop wearing negotiation theatrics like a badge of honor and start treating roster construction like serious work, the kind that happens behind closed doors, with discipline, and with a long-term plan. I know a lot of you are angry because you've seen draft capital traded away for feel-good moves before. You've watched the team get sucked into one-off, all-in moments that never fixed the real problems. And when the front office is loud or dramatic, it creates ripple effects. Players feel less secure, the market smells weakness, and the team ends up paying in. Picks or cap space later. So here's the key takeaway to hold on to while we walk through this. Quiet competence doesn't mean cowardice. It means you value sustainable wins over headline wins. Quick check with you. Do you want the Cowboys to copy the Lions' method of quietly protecting and building core pieces? Drop yes or no in the comments, and one sentence explaining why. Also, if you're new here and you want breakdowns like this every week, help us hit our goal of 16,000 subscribers by hitting subscribe and tapping the bell. It makes a real difference. Coming up next, I'll dig into exactly which parts of the Cowboys' current approach are costing them the most, and how a different process would change the roster picture long-term. Here's where the real contrast comes into focus. The Lions' front office and coaching staff operate on a unified message. They set priorities quietly, agree internally, and move with discipline. The Cowboys, on the other hand, have built a reputation for doing business in the public square. Every contract negotiation becomes a headline. Every internal discussion leaks into talk shows, and every delay feels like part of some media performance. And that constant noise matters more than people realize. When you publicly haggle with your own players, you send mixed signals to everyone else in the building. It says loyalty is negotiable, that attention comes before efficiency, and that no one really knows what the organizational plan is beyond the next press cycle. Contrast that with the Lions, who reward production without fanfare. They don't seem to need validation from national media. They need production, fit, and continuity. That quiet consistency helps players trust the process. And that's the secret to culture. When players know the organization acts with fairness and purpose, it's easier for everyone to buy in, even when money or roles get tight. The Cowboys used to have that identity once, but somewhere along the way, the Iker focus shifted from football operations to marketing optics. And it's not that Dallas doesn't have great people or talent. It's that the organizational process undercuts its own credibility by making every move part of a story instead of part of a system. That's why even strong rosters start to feel unstable. The environment turns dramatic, not disciplined. So when Jerry and Stephen Jones go on the radio talking about how there's not enough pie to go around, what fans hear isn't strategy. They hear excuses. Meanwhile, Detroit quietly signs its stars and keeps building. And that gap between quiet competence and loud confusion is exactly why the Lions look modern, and the Cowboys feel stuck in time. Tell me in the comments, what's one moment that made you lose faith in how this front office handles business? Keep it short, one sentence. And if you believe the Cowboys need to focus more on consistent structure and less on headlines, hit that thumbs up. It helps spread the message to more fans who feel just as frustrated as you. Next, we'll break down how this front office approach directly connects to the Cowboys' trade decisions, and why names like Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson reveal much more about the organization's mindset than you might think. Let's talk about the trade rumors that have had everyone buzzing lately. Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson, and all those hypothetical one-move-away scenarios. On the surface, it's exciting. Big names, instant upgrades, and a front office finally taking action. But let's slow down for a second and think this through. The idea behind these trades reveals exactly where the Cowboys' priorities stand. And that's what really matters here. Max Crosby represents the kind of move that has long-term logic behind it. A player still in his prime, elite production, and someone who could elevate this defense not only now, but deep into the next few seasons. That kind of investment says you're thinking about building something sustainable. On the flip side, Trey Hendrickson is the definition of a short-term rental. Solid player, yes, but a contract-year guy who would cost picks for only a few months of production. And here's the hard truth. That kind of move screams panic more than purpose. It's the same win-now mindset that ends up costing future draft picks, flexibility, and identity. You can't towel yourself dry while you're still in the middle of the ocean, right? And that's exactly the problem. The Cowboys are trying to use short-term trades to fix deep structural issues that can't be solved by one pass rusher, no matter how good he is. The Lions built by keeping their best and trusting the process. They didn't trade away picks for quick satisfaction. If Dallas is serious about contending, they've got to start operating the same way. Think long-term, protect capital, and stop reacting to every disappointing Sunday as if it's a five-alarm fire. Because when you chase one-year fixes, you don't just lose picks. You lose clarity. So here's a question for you. If it were up to you, which path would you take? 1. Make a future-focused move like Crosby. 2. Push all in this season with a rental like Hendrickson. Or 3. Hold your ground and rebuild through the draft? Drop the number in the comments and tell me why. Your opinion actually helps steer this conversation for the next few videos. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. We're pushing hard toward that 16,000 subscriber milestone, and every click helps us reach more fans who want honest, real talk about this team. Up next, we're going to break down the long-term price of these all-in moves, how they drain draft power, warp the team's cap, and ultimately rob the Cowboys of the very identity that used to make them great. When you start tracing the long-term effects of these so-called all-in moves, the real cost becomes painfully clear. Every time the Cowboys chase a quick fix, they sacrifice something vital: draft capital, salary cap stability, or even the internal discipline that defines winning organizations. Remember when they flipped mid-round picks for projects that never became contributors? Those weren't just small losses. They were moments when Dallas chose reaction over structure. And those decisions pile up. Each pick given away is one less young player developed under your own system, one less chance to build a balanced roster that can weather injuries or contract years. Look at Detroit. Again, they've built depth through the draft, paid their stars in order, and trusted their board instead of chasing emotion. That's how you sustain success. But in Dallas, there's this constant urge to make a splash, to prove urgency through transactions instead of transformation. That's how you end up in cap trouble, overpaying for average players, and watching your depth chart thin out faster than it can be rebuilt. The problem isn't talent, it's timeline. When you treat every year like a Super Bowl window that's closing tomorrow, you forget that building a true contender requires patience and humility. The front office can't keep kicking the cap down the road and pretending next year's draft will magically refill every hole. What fans want, and what players deserve, is a franchise that plans 3 moves ahead, not just one. Imagine if Dallas spent the next 18 months doing what the Lions did. Extend foundational players quietly, develop young depth, and avoid overpaying for temporary boosts. By 2026, that approach could produce a deeper, tougher, smarter team that wins on consistency, not hype. So let me ask you, would you rather hold on to those future picks and rebuild the right way, or give them up chasing one more desperate playoff push? Drop a simple yes or no in the comments, and I'll pin the best fan takes in the next video. Coming up next, we'll close this out with what you should actually expect from this front office over the next few weeks, and how you, as a fan, can keep the right perspective no matter what they decide to do. So, what should you expect from this front office now? Honestly, probably more of the same. A mix of noise, caution, and a few last-minute calls just to look active before the deadline. But, as frustrating as that sounds, it's also a chance to step back and look at what's really happening beneath the surface. The Cowboys aren't one trade away from fixing this. They're one philosophy away. The Lions proved you can rebuild a brand without the chaos. You can make smart, quiet decisions that protect your future and still compete in the present. That's what Dallas needs to learn, and fast. Until the front office starts valuing strategy over storylines, we'll keep living this same cycle of hype, heartbreak, and hindsight. But here's the thing. Fans like you have more power than you think. Every time you demand accountability, push back on empty narratives, and focus on substance over spin, you help change the culture from the outside in. That's why communities like this one matter. Real Cowboys fans talking about football like it's supposed to be talked about. So, let's keep it going. Tell me in the comments one thing you would change about how this front office operates. Just one. Be honest, be real, and I'll highlight the sharpest takes in our next breakdown. And if you're new here, do me one favor before you go. Hit that subscribe button and help us reach 16,000 subscribers. It's free. It takes a second, and it's the best way to support honest coverage that actually puts fans first. Hit like if you're tired of the noise and ready for real progress in Dallas. Because if the Cowboys ever decide to follow the Lions' blueprint, this fan base will be the first to see it coming, and the first to hold them accountable when they don't.